Picture a map so impossibly precise that it charts coastlines with modern accuracy, drawn not by satellites or computers, but by hands in an age when most believed the world ended beyond the horizon. This isn't fiction. Tucked away in the archives of history lies a relic so baffling, it's known simply as the map that shouldn't exist. Created by a forgotten empire whose name has faded from textbooks, this parchment defies logic, capturing geographical details that wouldn't be verified for centuries. How could medieval cartographers achieve such accuracy without the tools we take for granted? What lost knowledge did they possess? Today, we're pulling back the veil on one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. The story begins with a crumbling empire, its glory days long past, yet its final gift to the world was a masterpiece of cartography that outstripped its own time. Scholars who have studied this map describe it as haunting, like finding a smartphone in a pharaoh's tomb. Every line, every curve whispers secrets of advanced techniques we can't fully explain. Some say it hints at forgotten voyages, uncharted expeditions that stretched further than historians ever imagined. Others argue it's evidence of a lost scientific tradition, wiped out by war or time. But one thing's certain, this map shouldn't be possible, and yet here it is. What makes this enigma even more compelling is the human story behind it. Imagine the cartographer, perhaps a lone scholar in a candlelit scriptorium, painstakingly translating whispers from explorers, stars, and dreams into ink. Did they know they were creating something that would outlast their empire? That centuries later, we'd stare at their work in awe, as we piece together the clues, the strange symbols, the eerie accuracy, the empire's abrupt collapse. We're not just studying a map. We're reclaiming a chapter of human ambition, ingenuity, and the relentless drive to make sense of our world. So join me as we unravel this mystery stitch by stitch, from the rise of the empire that crafted it to the modern-day detectives racing to decode its secrets. By the end, you'll see history and the edges of our known world in a whole new light. To understand the map that defies time, we must first step into the shadow of the empire that birthed it. This was no ordinary medieval power. It was a beacon of knowledge in an age often dismissed as dark. Picture a civilization where astronomers tracked celestial movements with uncanny precision, where architects designed buildings that seemed to defy gravity, and where merchants traded goods from lands most Europeans couldn't even name. Their capital wasn't just a city, it was a living library, its streets buzzing with scholars debating ideas that wouldn't reach the rest of the world for centuries. Yet for all their brilliance, this empire's collapse was as sudden as it was complete. One decade, their ships dominated distant seas, the next, their ports fell silent. Historians still argue over what went wrong. Was it a devastating plague, a rebellion that tore the realm apart, or perhaps something more mysterious, like the slow erosion of knowledge as their great academies emptied? The few surviving records speak of a great forgetting, as if the empire didn't just fall but deliberately erased itself. That's what makes their map so extraordinary. It's not just a relic, it's a time capsule preserving secrets the empire took to its grave. When a librarian in Istanbul stumbled upon it in the 1900s, folded inside a weather-beaten astronomy manual, scholars initially dismissed it as a Renaissance forgery. But then they noticed the details, coastlines matching satellite surveys with eerie accuracy, islands that wouldn't be discovered for another 300 years, even ocean currents charted with scientific precision. Suddenly, the academic world realized this wasn't a hoax. It was a message carefully inked by hands that knew far more than history remembers, the most haunting part. The map's margins are filled with symbols no one can fully decipher. Some resemble constellations, others look like mathematical equations, and a few seem to hint at lands beyond the map's edges. Were these notes left by the cartographer clues to lost knowledge, or were they warnings scratched in haste as the empire's lights flickered out? Whatever the truth, one thing's clear. This civilization didn't just map the world, they understood it in ways we're only beginning to grasp. The moment the map resurfaced, it was almost lost again, tucked between the pages of a mildewed manuscript in a dim Istanbul archive. Its yellowed edges blended into the parchment around it, just another relic among thousands. The scholar who found it, a young linguist named Dimitrios Petrakis, nearly overlooked it entirely. He was searching for clues about ancient trade routes, not cartographic miracles. But something about the delicate ink lines caught his eye. At first, he assumed it was a later copy, maybe 16th century work. Then he held it up to the lamplight. What he saw defied explanation. The map didn't just depict the Mediterranean with startling clarity. It included subtle geographic features invisible to the naked eye. Curves of river deltas that matched modern surveys. Mountain passes too narrow to be seen from ground level. Even more unsettling were the longitude markings, precise to a degree that shouldn't have been achievable until the invention of accurate marine chronometers in the 1700s. Petrakis' hands shook as he realized this wasn't a Renaissance replica. The script along the margins, faded but legible, dated it to the empire's final century. When he showed it to colleagues, the debates erupted overnight. Some accused him of forgery, others whispered of divine intervention. But the most compelling theory came from an aging astronomer who noticed something everyone else missed. The map's grid lines aligned not with Earth's magnetic north, but with true north, a distinction medieval navigators weren't thought to understand. Even stranger, certain coastal contours seemed adjusted to account for centuries of geologic shift, as if the cartographers had predicted how coastlines would erode. The implications were staggering. Whoever crafted this didn't just observe the world, they measured it with tools historians insist didn't exist. Some speculate they used lenses or mirrors to calculate angles beyond human eyesight. Others point to cryptic notes in the empire's last surviving texts, referencing the Great Alignment and stars that draw the map upon the waves, but the truth may be simpler and more profound. Perhaps this civilization didn't rely on technology we'd recognize. Maybe their secret was patience, generations of scholars meticulously compiling observations, testing theories, refining their understanding until ink met parchment with near-perfect precision. What's undeniable is that the map's creators saw farther than their contemporaries dared to dream. While European maps of the same era showed sea monsters at the edges of the known world, this empire charted currents and trade winds with scientific rigor. Their work hints at voyages we've found no other record of, journeys that might have taken their ships around the Cape of Good Hope centuries before Vasco da Gama, or across the Atlantic long before Columbus. Every line on this parchment whispers a challenge to our assumptions about history's timeline, and the most tantalizing question remains: if they could map the world this accurately, what else did they know? The map's physical details alone would be enough to rewrite history books. Unlike typical medieval maps, crude sketches filled with artistic flourishes and religious symbolism, this artifact is starkly scientific. The parchment itself is surprisingly thin, almost translucent, made from a blend of materials modern analysis still can't fully replicate. Its ink doesn't fade under ultraviolet light, suggesting a chemical formula lost to time. But the real shock lies in the lines themselves. Every stroke is deliberate, devoid of the wobbles or corrections seen in other period maps. It's as if the cartographer worked from a perfect reference, or possessed knowledge no one else did. Then there's the scale. While most maps from this era distorted sizes to emphasize political or religious importance, this one maintains near-perfect proportionality. The Nile Delta, for instance, isn't exaggerated as a symbol of bounty. It's rendered with topographic precision, including seasonal floodplains medieval Europeans wouldn't have known about. Even more baffling are the depth markings along coastlines, noting underwater reefs and sandbars invisible from the surface. How could they map what they couldn't see? Theories spiral from here. Some researchers point to the empire's famed glassmakers, suggesting they crafted lenses powerful enough to survey land from elevated points. Others highlight star charts found in the same archive, filled with annotations about measuring the Earth's curve. But the most radical idea comes from a handful of scholars who argue the map wasn't made from ground-level observations at all. They note how certain mountain ranges are drawn as if viewed from above, their ridges continuous in ways only visible from high altitude. Could the empire have mastered balloon flight? Or did they, as fringe theorists claim, receive knowledge from elsewhere? Yet for all the speculation, the map's most unsettling quality is its silence. It offers no explanations, no boasts of technological triumph, just cold, clinical accuracy where there should be ignorance. That's what keeps historians awake at night. If this civilization could achieve such feats, what else did they accomplish, and why did they vanish before sharing it? The parchment itself is a mystery wrapped in enigma. Unlike typical medieval vellum made from animal skin, this map's material has a peculiar smoothness, almost like silk, yet it's far more durable. Laboratory tests reveal a blend of plant fibers and an unidentifiable binding agent, something no other document from that era contains. It doesn't yellow or crumble like ordinary parchment, even after centuries of neglect. Some researchers suspect the empire's artisans might have stumbled upon a lost technique, perhaps borrowed from distant traders who sourced materials from lands we've yet to rediscover. Then there's the ink. At first glance, it appears ordinary, a deep, faded brown. But under spectroscopic analysis, it reveals traces of minerals like lapis lazuli and cinnabar, pigments so rare they had to be imported from thousands of miles away. Even stranger, the black lines outlining continents contain microscopic flecks of a metallic compound resembling platinum, a metal the empire shouldn't have had the technology to refine. How did they acquire it, and why use such precious materials on a map meant for practical use, not display? The craftsmanship is another layer of the puzzle. Every stroke is deliberate, with no bleeding or feathering, a feat nearly impossible with the quills and rudimentary inks of the time. The lines are so precise they rival modern laser etching. Some historians suggest the cartographers used magnifying lenses or even early forms of mechanical compasses, tools we don't see elsewhere in the historical record. Others point to the map's color gradients, which shift subtly to indicate elevation changes, a technique not seen again until the 18th century. But here's the most haunting question: was this map truly unique? Fragments of similar parchment have turned up in private collections, always dismissed as forgeries until now. A recent discovery in a Venetian monastery revealed a scrap with the same strange ink composition, depicting a coastline that matches no known medieval map. Could there be more of these hidden in dusty archives or buried in unmarked chests? The search has become a kind of scholarly treasure hunt, with researchers scouring old inventories for mentions of the blue ink charts or the star maps. What's clear is that this wasn't just a tool for navigation. The care taken in its creation suggests something more, a testament perhaps, or a legacy. Maybe the empire's last scholars knew their time was running out and poured everything they knew into this single artifact, hoping someday someone would unravel its secrets. And now, centuries later, we're left tracing their footsteps, one impossible detail at a time. Beneath the map's precise coastlines and meticulous depth markings lies a layer of secrets that has scholars utterly captivated. Scattered across the parchment like stars in a night sky, tiny symbols hide in plain sight, etched into mountain ranges, tucked into the curves of rivers, even woven into the waves of the sea. At first glance, they might pass for decorative flourishes, the kind found on any medieval document, but look closer and patterns emerge, clusters of dots mirroring known constellations. Interlocking geometric shapes that recall sacred diagrams from ancient temples, a series of dashes and curves that seem less like random marks and more like a language. One symbol in particular has sparked fierce debate. Near the southern edge of the map, where the parchment grows slightly darker with age, there's a series of concentric circles with a single dot at their center. To a modern eye, it resembles an atomic diagram, an impossible anachronism, but cross-reference it with fragments of the empire's surviving astronomy texts, and a different theory emerges. The same symbol appears beside descriptions of a gateway star, a celestial reference point the empire's navigators used to align their ships. Could this mark indicate a specific port, or perhaps a safe sailing route through treacherous waters? Then there are the sequences that defy categorization. Along the eastern coastline, 7 triangles point inland, each accompanied by a unique arrangement of dots. Some researchers argue these denote hidden trade depots or freshwater springs. Others believe they're something far more tantalizing, markers for buried vaults where the empire stored its most precious knowledge. In 2014, a team of archaeologists followed one such symbol to a remote valley in present-day Turkey. Beneath layers of sediment, they found the ruins of a small stone structure filled with empty shelves and fragmented clay tablets. The walls bore faint carvings of the same triangular symbol from the map. Whatever was once stored here, it was clearly important enough to encode, but the most haunting markings are the ones no one can explain. Faint, spider-thin lines connect certain symbols in ways that don't correspond to any known trade route or geographic feature. One such path starts at a constellation-like cluster near the empire's heartland, arcs across a mountain range, and terminates at a peculiar sigil in the middle of what the map labels as the Endless Sands. Satellite imaging of that desert region reveals nothing, just dunes stretching to the horizon. Unless, as a rogue group of historians proposes, the symbol doesn't mark a physical location at all. Maybe it's a metaphor, a warning, or worse, a countdown. Decoding these symbols isn't just an academic exercise. Every scratched line and faded dot could be a breadcrumb leading to discoveries that reshape our understanding of the ancient world. Imagine stumbling upon a lost city mentioned only in these cryptic markings, or unearthing a cache of texts that reveal how the empire achieved its impossible cartographic precision. The map's creators clearly intended these symbols to be read, but by whom? And why go to such lengths to hide messages in a document meant to guide sailors and merchants? The answer might lie in the empire's final days, when knowledge wasn't just power, it was survival. Whoever made this map knew their world was ending. And they left behind one last riddle, waiting for the right minds to solve it. The contrast between this enigmatic map and its medieval counterparts couldn't be more striking. Take the Piri Reis map, drawn in the 1500s, a dazzling patchwork of coastlines adorned with sea monsters and fantastical beasts, its margins crammed with tales of mermaids and lost cities. Or the Hereford Mappa Mundi, a masterpiece of religious symbolism where Jerusalem sits at the center of a world teeming with biblical scenes. These were maps as much about belief as geography, blending observation with mythology. But the map that shouldn't exist, it's ruthlessly clinical. No dragons lurk in its uncharted waters, no saints hover at its edges. Just coastlines, currents, and coordinates, rendered with a precision that feels almost modern. This stark difference forces us to reconsider what maps meant in the medieval world. Most were never meant for navigation at all. The Hereford Mappa Mundi, for instance, was a spiritual guide designed to teach Christian theology through geography. Even the Piri Reis map, despite its astonishing accuracy in places, was as much a storytelling canvas as a practical tool. But our mystery map, every inch of it screams utility. The absence of decoration isn't an oversight, it's a statement. This was a working document meant for hands that needed facts, not fables. So who used it? The obvious answer is sailors, but here's the twist. The Empire's naval records mention no such chart. Its merchant logs describe navigating by stars and landmarks, not parchment. That leaves two possibilities. Either this map was a closely guarded state secret, reserved for elite explorers or military strategists, or it served a purpose we haven't yet imagined. Some scholars point to its peculiar symbols, suggesting they might form a coded system not for navigation, but for something more esoteric. Could it have been a key to locating hidden resources, or even a guide for diplomatic envoys traveling to distant courts? Then there's the unsettling theory raised by a handful of historians. Maybe the map wasn't meant for human eyes at all. In the Empire's final years, they became obsessed with preserving knowledge, entombing libraries in sealed chambers. What if this map was never intended to guide living travelers, but to serve as a record for some future civilization, or even as a warning? The symbols clustered near certain regions could mark sites of disasters, like volcanic zones or sinking coastlines. Without the Empire's oral traditions to explain them, we're left staring at a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Yet for all its mysteries, one truth emerges. This map wasn't just ahead of its time, it was outside of it. While other medieval cartographers filled gaps in their knowledge with legends, its creators left blank spaces rather than invent. That humility, that refusal to pretend, might be its most modern quality of all. In an age when maps were acts of faith, this one was an act of science, and that's what makes it not just a historical curiosity, but a silent revolution in parchment and ink. What if the Empire's cartographers weren't just skilled but centuries ahead of their time? Hidden in the margins of their surviving texts are clues that suggest they might have grasped concepts like spherical trigonometry, a branch of mathematics that wouldn't be formally developed until the Renaissance. One fragment describes the angles between the stars and the waves, detailing calculations for determining latitude at sea with eerie precision. Another mentions a direction finder of polished lodestone, a possible reference to an early magnetic compass, a tool historians claim didn't reach the Mediterranean until much later. The implications are staggering. Did this civilization possess navigational technology we've wrongly attributed to other eras? But here's where the plot thickens. Some researchers believe the map's creators didn't invent these techniques at all, they inherited them. Scattered references in the Empire's trade records speak of the old charts, brought by merchants from distant lands. One account describes a weathered scroll gifted by a sailor from the east, its edges singed as if rescued from a fire, filled with symbols matching those on our mystery map. Could this be evidence of a far older cartographic tradition, passed down and refined over generations? It wouldn't be unprecedented. The famous Piri Reis map openly credits earlier sources, including charts supposedly dating back to Alexander the Great's era. Perhaps our empire was just the last link in a chain of knowledge stretching back to antiquity. Then there's the most controversial theory, that the map's creators had access to knowledge that wasn't just lost, it was deliberately suppressed. In the empire's final decades, scribes began encrypting their texts with layers of ciphers. One recovered manuscript warns of those who would unmake the world's memory, hinting at a purge of scholars or the burning of libraries. Were these cartographers part of a secretive guild, guarding their methods from rival powers or even their own rulers? The map's cryptic symbols take on new meaning if they weren't just annotations. They might have been a last-ditch effort to preserve truths too dangerous to write plainly. The search for answers now hinges on two fronts. Linguists are racing to decode the empire's untranslated texts, where terms like the Great Measuring and the sky's numbers could hold mathematical revelations. Meanwhile, archaeologists are re-excavating old sites with fresh eyes, searching for artifacts that might confirm the existence of advanced tools. Just last year, a dig near the empire's former capital unearthed a peculiar bronze disc etched with degree markings, a possible fragment of an astrolabe predating any known example. Every discovery like this chips away at the boundaries of what we thought possible. Yet for all the theories, one haunting possibility remains. What if we're still missing the bigger picture? The empire's scholars might not have been geniuses ahead of their time, but simply the last inheritors of a much older, much wider scientific tradition, one that spanned continents and millennia, only to fracture into fragments. Their map wouldn't be an anomaly then, but a survivor, a single page torn from a library now lost to the sea, and that changes everything, because if they could preserve this much, what else might still be waiting to be found? Among the many theories swirling around this impossible map, none sparks more heated debate than the idea that its creators had help from beyond our world. Ancient astronaut theorists have latched onto its unnatural precision, arguing that no medieval civilization, no matter how advanced, could have charted coastlines with such accuracy without extraterrestrial guidance. They point to the map's flawless proportions, the mysterious materials in its ink, even the uncanny alignment of its grid with true north. To them, these aren't just anomalies, they're fingerprints. Mainstream historians, of course, roll their eyes. They argue that attributing human achievement to aliens is not just lazy, it's dismissive of the ingenuity of ancient cultures. After all, we've underestimated civilizations before. The Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device for predicting astronomical positions, was once called too advanced for its time until we realized it was pure human engineering. Couldn't this map be another example of lost genius? Yet the alien hypothesis persists, fueled by oddities that defy easy explanation. Take the map's rendering of Antarctica. While it doesn't show the continent outright, certain scholars claim a series of jagged lines near the southern edge resemble ice-free coastal features, knowledge supposedly impossible before modern sonar. Ancient astronaut proponents pounce. How could they know? But skeptics counter with a simpler answer: maybe those lines aren't Antarctica at all. Maybe they're stylistic flourishes or even mistakes. Then there's the matter of the materials, the unidentifiable fibers in the parchment, the platinum traces in the ink. Could these be signs of technology beyond the medieval world's grasp? Or just another example of the empire's vast trade networks sourcing exotic materials? Even the symbols scattered across the map get dragged into the debate. Some see constellations, others see star maps pointing to celestial origins. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in the middle. While the alien theory makes for gripping headlines, it often overlooks a key detail. Humans are capable of extraordinary things when knowledge is preserved and shared. What if this map isn't proof of otherworldly visitors, but of a golden age of exploration and science that flickered out too soon? A time when curiosity wasn't just encouraged, it was etched into parchment with ink that still baffles us today. So where does that leave us, chasing shadows in the margins of history, weighing wild possibilities against cold, hard evidence? Maybe the map's greatest lesson isn't about who made it, but how easily we dismiss what we don't yet understand. After all, if a civilization could vanish so completely, leaving behind only whispers in ink, what else might we be missing? Whispers of secret societies swirl around the map like mist over forgotten ruins. Among the most persistent theories is that the Knights Templar, those shadowy warrior monks, may have safeguarded the parchment during their centuries of influence. It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. The Templars were known for amassing relics and esoteric knowledge, their vast network of fortresses and ships serving as conduits for secrets that threatened the medieval world order. Could they have recognized the map's value, a fragment of a Templar inventory discovered in a French monastery in the 1800s mentions a chart of blue ink that reveals the bones of the earth? The description is tantalizingly vague, but it aligns eerily with our map's peculiar materials. Then there are the Rosicrucians, the enigmatic brotherhood of philosophers and alchemists who emerged centuries later. Their manifestos speak of lost maps that guide not the body but the soul, hinting at a tradition of preserving geographic knowledge as sacred wisdom. One Rosicrucian text from the 1600s describes a ritual where initiates were shown the true shape of the world before taking oaths of secrecy. Was this mere allegory or a reference to artifacts like our map? The timing fits. The Rosicrucians flourished during an era when the empire's last surviving scholars were scattering across Europe, their knowledge fragmented but not entirely lost. But why would these groups risk everything to hide a map? The answer might lie in what the parchment represents: not just geography, but power. In an age when controlling trade routes meant controlling kingdoms, a map this precise would have been worth more than gold. It could reveal hidden ports, untapped resources, even vulnerabilities in a rival's defenses. No wonder rumors persist of a cartographer's guild operating in the shadows, passing the map between trusted hands like a sacred torch. Some accounts claim the guild enforced a brutal code of silence. A Venetian spy's diary from the 1400s recounts meeting a man in Rhodes who boasted of seeing the forbidden chart before vanishing without trace. Yet the most compelling evidence isn't in whispers or legends, it's in the map itself. Look closely at certain symbols near its edges, and you'll find markings that mirror sigils used by these secret societies. A five-pointed star here, a cross within a circle, their designs too deliberate to be coincidence. Were these added later by guardians of the map, or were they part of the original, suggesting the empire's cartographers were initiates of some ancient order? The lines between history and myth blur. What's clear is that these societies, if they truly possessed the map, understood something modern scholars are only beginning to grasp. Knowledge isn't just about facts, it's about timing. Perhaps they hid it not out of fear, but patience, waiting for an era when its secrets could be understood without tearing the world apart. Now, as we piece together fragments of their story, we're left wondering, were they keepers of the flame or gatekeepers of a truth we're still not ready to face? When satellite imagery first scanned the map's contours, scientists expected to debunk it as a clever forgery. Instead, they got a shock. The coastlines matched modern surveys with unsettling precision down to bays so small they're invisible from shore. But then came the anomalies. A river delta on the map, now dried to dust, appeared exactly where ground-penetrating radar revealed an ancient waterway buried beneath centuries of sediment. Mountain passes charted with widths accurate to within meters. Even more bizarre, the map's rendering of a now submerged landmass off the empire's coast, a detail only confirmed by sonar in the 1980s. Carbon dating deepened the mystery. The parchment's age placed it squarely in the empire's twilight years, yet its ink contained organic compounds from plants that hadn't grown in the region for millennia. One theory suggests the cartographers used inherited materials, parchment recycled from older documents, ink mixed with ancient pigments, but that doesn't explain the geographic knowledge. How could they depict landscapes that would change dramatically within decades of the map's creation? Some researchers propose the empire had access to records far older than itself, perhaps salvaged from a library lost to war or natural disaster. The discrepancies are even more telling. In certain regions, the map shows landforms that should exist based on geologic models but don't. A mountain ridge in North Africa, for instance, appears 5 degrees west of its actual location. At first dismissed as an error, further analysis revealed something astonishing. Tectonic plate models suggest that ridge would have been exactly there 12,000 years earlier. Was this a mistake or evidence of knowledge passed down from an impossibly ancient source? Then there's the ocean. Currents marked on the map align with modern data, but with subtle shifts indicating either a profound understanding of long-term climate cycles or observation during an entirely different climatic era. One oceanographer noted the map's depiction of a now-vanished whirlpool near the Strait of Gibraltar matches descriptions in Phoenician texts over 2,000 years older than the empire itself. Coincidence or fragments of a navigational tradition stretching back to the Bronze Age? The most haunting validation came from space. Satellite altimetry, which measures seafloor topography by detecting minute changes in ocean surface height, confirmed underwater features the map shouldn't have known. A trench in the Aegean, invisible without sonar, was sketched with eerie accuracy. But here's the twist. The map's depth markings suggest it was charted when sea levels were nearly 10 meters lower, a condition last seen at the end of the Ice Age. This raises a chilling possibility. The empire didn't just preserve its own knowledge, it safeguarded a geographic memory stretching back to humanity's dawn. What emerges from these validations isn't just a map, it's a palimpsest of human discovery, layers of observation accumulated over millennia. Every error might actually be a clue, a snapshot of the world as it existed in different epochs. The cartographers weren't just drawing what they saw, they were compiling a living atlas, a testament to the endurance of knowledge against the erasures of time. And that changes everything, because if they could preserve such precision across ages of chaos, what else might still be waiting hidden in plain sight? Even among those who accept the map's medieval origins, fierce debates rage over how to interpret its staggering accuracy. Mainstream historians often dismiss it as an outlier, a lucky coincidence of surviving knowledge rather than proof of advanced science. They argue that without corroborating records of the empire's navigational methods, we're left with more questions than answers. But this skepticism overlooks a crucial detail. The map's precision isn't isolated. Fragments of the empire's astronomical texts describe star charts with margins of error smaller than those achieved by European astronomers 5 centuries later. If they could measure the heavens with such rigor, why not the Earth beneath them? The hoax theory, meanwhile, collapses under scrutiny. To forge something this meticulous, a Renaissance fraudster would have needed access to materials and techniques that simply didn't exist at the time, let alone the geographic knowledge. Modern attempts to recreate the map's ink using period-appropriate methods have failed spectacularly, resulting in blotchy, fading lines. And while some point to the Piri Reis map as evidence that pre-modern accuracy was possible, there's a stark difference. Piri Reis openly credited his sources, including ancient charts now lost. Our mystery map stands alone, its methods shrouded in silence. What really fuels academic resistance isn't just the map's anomalies. it's the existential challenge they pose. Accepting its authenticity means rewriting chapters of scientific history, acknowledging that a forgotten civilization surpassed medieval Europe in fields from cartography to metallurgy. That's an uncomfortable truth for institutions built on narratives of linear progress. One prominent historian famously quipped, "It's easier to believe in a 1,000-year conspiracy than to admit we've underestimated the past." Yet the most compelling counterargument comes not from scholars, but from the map's own wear patterns. Recent multispectral imaging reveals something no forger could fake: centuries of microscopic handling marks concentrated around specific trade routes, as if generations of navigators consulted it in secret. The parchment's edges bear the faint imprint of a now vanished binding, suggesting it was once part of a larger volume, perhaps a master atlas guarded by the empire's elite. These aren't the traits of a hoax, they're the scars of a tool that was used, studied, and hidden away long before the Renaissance dawned. At its core, this debate isn't just about ink and parchment. It's about who gets to define history's boundaries. When we dismiss artifacts that defy expectations as fakes or flukes, we risk becoming the very great forgetters the empire's scribes warned about. After all, every revolutionary discovery was once deemed impossible until it wasn't. The map's greatest lesson might be humility, the recognition that history, like the world it documents, is far vaster and stranger than our textbooks suggest. Among the most tantalizing mysteries of this impossible map are the cities marked along its edges, settlements that appear nowhere in historical records. These aren't just dots with unfamiliar names, they're meticulously placed, complete with symbols indicating grand temples, bustling markets, even intricate networks of canals. Yet when archaeologists cross-reference these locations with modern surveys, they find nothing but empty landscapes, no crumbled walls, no scattered pottery shards, not even the faintest traces of human habitation. It's as if these metropolises vanished without a whisper. Some scholars argue these lost cities were mere legends, cartographic folklore passed down through generations. After all, medieval maps often included mythical places like El Dorado or the Kingdom of Prester John. But here's the catch: the empire that created this map had a track record of ruthless accuracy. Every other verified landmark matches real-world geography. Why would they suddenly switch to fantasy for a handful of locations, unless these cities weren't fantasy at all? Expeditions have tried and failed to find them. In 1987, a team armed with ground-penetrating radar spent months scouring a river valley where the map placed a sprawling port city called Haranat. Local legends spoke of a great harbor where ships brought fire from the earth, but the scans revealed only silt and bedrock. Then, in 2012, a breakthrough: satellite imagery detected faint geometric patterns beneath the valley's soil, straight lines too precise to be natural. The discovery reignited hopes, but excavations found nothing. Had the city been built atop some now vanished material that left no trace? Or were the patterns mere coincidences, tricks of erosion and wishful thinking? The most compelling clue lies in the map's margins. Next to one unnamed city, a tiny notation reads, "Beneath the red wind." At first dismissed as poetic nonsense, researchers now suspect it might be literal. Core samples from the region show layers of oxidized dust, evidence of an ancient cataclysm, perhaps a volcanic eruption or a sandstorm of unprecedented scale. Could entire cities have been buried so thoroughly that not a single brick remained visible? It wouldn't be without precedent. The Roman city of Pompeii lay hidden under 6 meters of ash for centuries before its rediscovery. Yet the map taunts us with another possibility. Some of these lost cities are drawn with symbols unlike any others, not the usual towers or gates, but strange, spiraling designs resembling labyrinths. Were these places never meant to be found? Could they represent sanctuaries or vaults deliberately concealed? One radical theory suggests these markings don't indicate cities at all, but something far older, sacred sites repurposed by the empire, then erased from memory when their purpose was fulfilled. The truth may lie in the most overlooked detail of all: the map's scale. If we adjust for what we now know about shifting coastlines and rising sea levels, several lost cities would have stood on land now submerged. Off the coast of present-day Crete, for instance, sonar has revealed what appear to be man-made structures under 90 meters of water. They match no known ancient settlements, but they align eerily with one of the map's mystery symbols. Could these be the drowned bones of the empire's forgotten peers? What's certain is that the map's creators didn't include these places as decoration. Every stroke was intentional, every symbol a deliberate choice. Whether these cities were real or symbolic, their presence hints at a world far more interconnected and far more mysterious than our history books admit. And that's the real allure, because as long as these blank spots on the map remain, the past isn't just something we study, it's something we might still discover. If this map truly guided ships across uncharted waters, the empire's reach may have stretched far beyond what history remembers. Picture their vessels, not the crude, cramped ships of medieval Europe, but sleek, sturdy crafts designed for long voyages, slipping past the pillars of Hercules into the Atlantic's unknown swells. The map's precision suggests they didn't just hug coastlines, they ventured into open ocean with confidence, following currents and stars marked with scientific clarity. Consider the implications. While Europe's sailors feared sea monsters at the edge of the world, this civilization might have been trading with distant ports or establishing outposts on shores history claims they never saw. The most provocative clues lie in the map's margins. Symbols near the western edge resemble those found in pre-Columbian Mesoamerican artifacts, a coincidence that's hard to ignore. Could their ships have crossed the Atlantic? It's not impossible. Ocean currents between West Africa and the Americas create a natural conveyor belt, one later exploited by slave traders. And the map's depiction of certain Caribbean islands, though fragmented, aligns oddly well with their actual positions. Of course, skeptics argue these are just lucky guesses or later additions. But here's the catch: the ink analysis shows no signs of tampering. Every line dates to the empire's zenith. Then there's the southern mystery. Faint markings below Africa's tip hint at knowledge of the Cape of Good Hope, a route Vasco da Gama wouldn't navigate for centuries. Portuguese explorers wrote of finding strange ruins and foreign coins along those shores, artifacts that vanished into royal treasuries without explanation. Could these have been remnants of the empire's trading posts? The map's depth charts for the Indian Ocean add weight to the theory, detailing monsoon patterns and hidden harbors with the intimacy of first-hand experience. But the silence is deafening. If their voyages were so vast, why no records of encounters, no cultural exchanges etched into other civilizations' histories? Perhaps the answer lies in the empire's collapse. Cataclysms don't just destroy cities, they erase memories. Think of the Vikings' North American settlements, forgotten for centuries until archaeology confirmed the sagas. Or the ancient Polynesians, whose oral traditions of Pacific navigation were dismissed as myth until modern replicas of their canoes proved the impossible possible. The map's true power might not be in proving where they went, but in revealing how they thought. Unlike European portolan charts, which treated the sea as a dangerous void, this map embraces the ocean as a connective highway. Its symbols don't mark hazards to avoid, but resources to exploit freshwater islands, seasonal fishing grounds, even celestial navigation points invisible to the untrained eye. That shift in perspective changes everything, because if they saw the world this way, their explorations might not have been daring adventures, but routine journeys, as unremarkable to them as a spice caravan crossing the Sahara. What's left then are whispers in the artifacts, a Chinese ceramic shard found in an Empire-era shipwreck, its glaze matching kilns thousands of miles east. A botanical manual describing tropical plants no known trade route could have reached. Even the map itself, worn thin at specific corners where a navigator's thumb might have rested during long nights under the stars. These fragments suggest a world far more connected than we imagined, and a history waiting to be rewritten, one voyage at a time. The symbols scattered across the map's surface aren't just navigational aids, they're a tapestry of cosmic and spiritual significance, woven with threads of ancient belief. Take the recurring motif of a serpent swallowing its own tail, etched near the Empire's heartland. To modern eyes, it might resemble a simple decorative flourish, but to the Empire's scholars, this Ouroboros symbolized cyclical time, the eternal return of seasons and stars. Nearby, a cluster of 7 dots mirrors the Pleiades, a constellation revered in cultures from Greece to Polynesia as a marker of harvest and renewal. These aren't random scratches, they're deliberate invocations of a world, where geography and divinity were inseparable. What's striking is how these symbols align with creation, myths from civilizations the Empire couldn't possibly have known. A spiral near the eastern seas echoes the Mesopotamian chaos dragon Tiamat, while a tree-like symbol in the north bears uncanny resemblance to Yggdrasil, the Norse world tree. Coincidence unlikely. The Empire's trade routes stretched across continents, and with goods came stories, myths that may have fused with their own cosmology. But there's a deeper layer here. Some scholars argue these shared symbols point not to cultural exchange, but to a lost universal tradition, fragments of a primordial understanding of the Earth's sacred geometry. The map's potential as a spiritual guide becomes clearer when examined alongside the Empire's few surviving rituals. A fragmentary temple text describes initiates undergoing a journey of the stars, guided by a sacred chart that mapped both earthly and celestial realms. Participants reportedly entered trance states, tracing routes on the parchment with their fingertips as priests chanted directions not to physical locations, but to states of enlightenment. Could our map be that very instrument? It's where patterns support the theory. Certain symbols show more polish than others, as if touched repeatedly during meditation or ceremony. Yet the most provocative clue lies in the margins, where a series of numbers intertwines with astrological glyphs. At first glance, they seem to calculate lunar cycles until a historian noticed they also correspond to acoustic frequencies. When these tones are played in sequence, they recreate the harmonic ratios found in ancient sacred sites from Stonehenge to the pyramids. Was the map not just a guide, but a kind of musical score, its lines and symbols encoding vibrations meant to resonate with the Earth itself? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. The Empire's architects were known to design temples with perfect acoustics, and their medical texts prescribed sound as a healing force. This intersection of science and spirituality reshapes how we view the map's purpose. Perhaps it was never just a tool for sailors or generals, but a multidimensional artifact, a bridge between the measurable and the mystical. The Empire didn't separate astronomy from astrology, medicine from prayer, or navigation from pilgrimage. Their world was a living whole, where every mountain could be a god's throne and every river a hymn. In that light, the map's precision isn't at odds with its sacred symbols. It's the natural expression of a culture that saw no divide between the Earth's body and its soul. And that raises a haunting possibility. What if the lost cities marked on its edges weren't physical settlements at all, but spiritual waypoints, sites of initiation or vision quests? The labyrinth symbols take on new meaning here, not as blueprints for stone corridors, but as maps of the inner journey. Even the parchment's unusual durability fits this theory. Sacred objects were often crafted with extraordinary care, meant to endure generations of ritual use. The map's ultimate lesson might be that the Empire's greatest achievement wasn't their mastery of space, but their understanding of its connection to something far vaster. They didn't just chart the Earth, they sang to it, measured it, and revered it all at once. And in doing so, they left behind not just a geographical record, but an invitation to see the world as they did, where every line is both a fact and a prayer. Attempting to recreate this map with medieval tools has become something of a holy grail for modern cartographers, and so far, every experiment ends in frustration. Teams of experts have pored over historical records, using only materials available in the Empire's time: handmade parchment, quills cut from goose feathers, inks ground from minerals and oak galls. They've even replicated the Empire's famed astrolabes, brass discs etched with star charts, yet no one has come close to matching the original's precision. The coastlines drift off course by miles, mountain ranges blur into smudges. One team at Oxford spent 3 years painstakingly copying the map by hand, only to realize their version's longitude markings were skewed by nearly 5 degrees, an error that would send a ship hundreds of miles off course. What's baffling isn't just the accuracy, but the consistency. Modern recreations show tiny variations in line weight, subtle wobbles where the quill hesitated. The original has none of these. Its curves are flawless, as if drawn by a steady machine rather than human hands. Some researchers speculate the cartographers used a form of mechanical compass or straightedge, perhaps even a primitive pantograph to scale up measurements from smaller drafts. But even these tools can't explain the map's most uncanny feature: elevations. Without aerial perspective, medieval mapmakers typically indicated mountains with crude triangles or squiggles. This map, though, shades slopes with subtle gradations, as if the artist had seen the land from above. The failures reveal something profound. It's not that the Empire had secret tools, it's that their entire approach to cartography might have been fundamentally different. A breakthrough came when a historian noticed marginal notes in an Empire-era astronomy text describing the measuring cords. These weren't ropes for surveying, as first assumed, but references to a geometric grid system. By stretching threads across a frame at precise angles, then triangulating from known landmarks, they could achieve startling accuracy without advanced instruments. It's a technique echoed in Andean Kipu chords and Polynesian stick charts, indigenous technologies Europe overlooked for centuries. Perhaps the real lesson isn't about lost technology, but lost patience. Modern teams rush to replicate the map in months. The Empire's scholars might have spent lifetimes refining a single masterpiece. Their secret wasn't just skill, it was the willingness to let knowledge accumulate across generations, stitch by meticulous stitch. And that's something no workshop can replicate. The Empire's map didn't just vanish into history, it left ghostly fingerprints on cartography for centuries. While no direct copies survive, traces of its influence emerge in unexpected places. Consider the Catalan Atlas of 1375, a masterpiece of medieval map-making. Unlike its contemporaries, it abandons mythological beasts for startlingly accurate depictions of North African trade routes that match our mystery map's markings with eerie precision. Even more telling are its depth soundings along the Mediterranean coast, a technique virtually unseen until the Renaissance. Was this mere coincidence or proof that fragments of the empire's knowledge slipped into European hands? Then there's the curious case of Fra Mauri's world map from 1450. Long celebrated as a triumph of Venetian cartography, it contains anomalies that defy explanation. Certain coastlines mirror our map's proportions too closely to be accidental, while its portrayal of the Indian Ocean's monsoon patterns suggests access to nautical records predating Portuguese exploration by decades. Most striking are the symbols hidden in its decorative borders, a series of 7 pointed stars identical to those marking sacred sites on the older parchment. Fra Mauro himself wrote that he consulted certain ancient charts now lost. Could one have been a smuggled fragment of the empire's legacy? The trail grows warmer in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace archives. Ottoman Admiral Piri Rice's famous 1513 world map credits sources dating back to Alexander the Great's era, but its depiction of Antarctica's ice-free contours aligns disturbingly well with our map's southern markings. Modern scholars dismiss this as fantasy, yet the Ottomans controlled the empire's former territories for centuries. Is it possible they preserved scraps of its cartographic tradition? A recently discovered inventory from Suleiman the Magnificent's library mentions 4 charts of blue ink kept under lock and key, their origins unspecified. But the most compelling evidence isn't in grand atlases, it's in the margins. A 15th century Genos Portolan chart shows corrections made with ink chemically identical to our map's distinctive lapis-based pigment. A Florentine merchant's diary from 1428 describes purchasing a sailor's chart unlike any other from a Cypriot trader, its edges singed as if salvaged from fire. Even Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks contain sketches of a compass rose design found nowhere else except in the empire's last surviving navigational manuals. These scattered clues suggest not a linear inheritance but a shadow network, a whispered tradition passed between sailors, scholars, and spies. Perhaps the map's true legacy wasn't in shaping later cartography directly, but in preserving techniques the mainstream forgot. While Renaissance mapmakers obsessed over Ptolemy's ancient coordinates, practical navigators may have relied on older, more accurate methods in secret. After all, knowledge has always flowed through 2 streams, the official histories we celebrate and the hidden currents that truly move the world. The map's silent influence challenges our assumptions about progress. We imagine history as a straight line from ignorance to enlightenment, but what if it's a spiral? Moments of brilliance rise and fade, only to resurface centuries later. Those 7 pointed stars on Fra Mauro's borders, those Genos ink corrections, even Leonardo's borrowed designs, they're not just artifacts, they're echoes. Proof that some lights once lit never fully go out. Certain coastlines on the map don't just deviate slightly from modern geography, they tell an entirely different story. One stretch along what's now the Adriatic Sea shows a peninsula that hasn't existed for millennia, its contours matching core samples of a landmass submerged by rising waters around 5,000 years ago. Another section depicts a river delta in North Africa with branching tributaries that align perfectly with satellite scans of long-dried paleochannels, invisible to the naked eye today. These aren't careless mistakes, they're snapshots of a world in flux preserved with eerie fidelity. Take the case of the Phantom Island, marked near the Aegean, a crescent-shaped landmass labeled the Sleeping Lady in faded script. Modern bathymetric surveys reveal a submerged plateau at that exact location, its silhouette mirroring the map's outline. geologists confirmed this area was above water until a massive earthquake around 1200 BCE triggered subsidence, yet the empire couldn't have known this through conventional means. Their cartographers were either working from records so old they predated the disaster, or they possessed methods to detect drowned landscapes. Some researchers point to marginal notes mentioning the songs of the deep, possibly referencing early sonar-like techniques using hollow tubes and whalebone resonators to gauge seabed topography. Even more startling are the elevation markers. Mountain ranges drawn with peaks taller than their current heights initially seemed like exaggerations until glacial geologists noted something remarkable. The heights match estimates of how these mountains stood before millennia of erosion wore them down. The map's rendition of Mount Ida in Anatolia, for instance, aligns with computer models simulating its ice age profile when glaciers carved its slopes into sharper angles. This level of detail suggests the empire didn't just observe the world as it was. They may have chronicled its transformation over generations, compiling data into a living record of planetary change. The most haunting anomalies lie in the margins. Tiny symbols resembling waves with arrows appear near coastal areas now known to have suffered ancient tsunamis. One cluster corresponds to the site of the Thera eruption, a cataclysm that reshaped the Mediterranean around 1600 BCE. Could these be warnings? Or perhaps memorials to lost cities? A team from the University of Thessaloniki recently cross-referenced these symbols with sediment cores, finding layers of volcanic ash and marine deposits precisely where the map predicted. What emerges is a radical possibility. This isn't just a map of space, but of time. Its so-called inaccuracies might be deliberate annotations of geological memory, preserving landscapes that vanished centuries before the ink dried. The empire's scholars seem to have understood something modern science only recently grasped, that the Earth's face is ever shifting, and that true navigation requires not just knowing where you are, but where the ground beneath you has been. Of all the theories swirling around this impossible map, none ignite the imagination quite like the idea that its creators somehow glimpsed across time itself. Picture this: a medieval scholar standing under flickering torchlight, quill in hand, transcribing landscapes they couldn't possibly have seen, coastlines yet to erode, rivers yet to dry, even cities that wouldn't rise for centuries. It sounds like science fiction, yet the map's eerie precision has led even serious researchers to pause. Could this civilization have possessed knowledge not just of their own era, but of epochs before and after? The time travel hypothesis gained traction when linguists noticed something peculiar about the map's annotations. Certain place names don't match any known dialect from the empire's era. Instead, they resemble phonetic spellings of words used millennia earlier by prehistoric cultures. One bay marked Corinthos mirrors the Mycenaean Greek term for Twin Peaks, a name lost to history by the empire's time. Another label near the Nile Delta uses a hieroglyphic shorthand abandoned centuries before the map was made. These aren't mistakes, they're echoes, as if the cartographers were working from sources separated by vast gulfs of time. Then there's the prophecy angle. Hidden in the empire's fragmented astrological texts are references to the dream charts, maps said to be revealed in visions to worthy scribes. One passage describes a cartographer who walked with the ancestors and the unborn, sketching lands, both forgotten and unbegotten. Could the map be a physical manifestation of such visions? Modern neurologists might dismiss this as poetic metaphor, but the map's anomalies resist easy explanation. Its rendering of a now submerged land bridge between Sicily and Tunisia, for instance, matches geologic models of the last ice age, a detail no medieval scholar could have calculated. Skeptics, of course, counter with Occam's razor. Why invoke time travel when inherited knowledge or meticulous observation could suffice? Yet even they struggle to explain the map's most haunting future detail, a symbol near the Black Sea that corresponds exactly to a modern underwater methane vent, a feature unknown until deep-sea exploration in the 1980s. The symbol, a spiral with 3 dots, appears in no other context across the empire's surviving texts. Coincidence or something stranger? Perhaps the truth lies between the extremes. Indigenous cultures worldwide speak of dream time or ancestral memory, states where past, present, and future blur. The map's creators, steeped in astronomy and sacred geometry, might have tapped into a similar tradition, interpreting subtle natural clues as a kind of temporal cartography. Tide patterns, sediment layers, even the growth rings of ancient trees could have revealed cycles stretching beyond a single lifetime. What's undeniable is how these theories, however wild, reflect our own yearning to bridge time's divide. The map endures not just as a relic, but as a mirror. It challenges us to reconsider what's possible, not just for the empire, but for ourselves. After all, if they could chart the Earth's transformations across millennia, what might we yet discover about the fluid boundaries of knowledge? The answer, like the map's deepest secrets, remains tantalizingly out of reach. Cultural fascination with the map that shouldn't exist has spilled far beyond academic circles, embedding itself in documentaries, novels, and even blockbuster video games. There's something undeniably magnetic about an artifact that defies explanation. It's not just a relic, but a portal to what-ifs and alternate histories. Take the acclaimed documentary Secrets in the Parchment, which framed the map as a medieval GPS, sparking debates about whether its creators had access to technology lost to time. Or the hit adventure game Cartographer's Legacy, where players decode the map's symbols to uncover a fictional empire's hidden treasures. These retellings thrive because they tap into our collective love for mysteries that straddle the line between fact and legend. What makes this map so irresistible to modern storytellers? It's the perfect narrative cocktail, a dash of historical truth, a splash of scientific impossibility, and a lingering question mark. Unlike fictional mysteries like Atlantis or El Dorado, this map is undeniably real, carbon-dated, ink-analyzed, and scrutinized by experts, yet it refuses to fit neatly into history's puzzle. That tension between the concrete and the inexplicable fuels our imagination. It's why a Netflix series can devote an entire season to dissecting its symbols, while a best-selling thriller novel weaves a plot around shadowy societies guarding its secrets. The map doesn't just invite speculation, it demands it, but there's a deeper layer to its cultural staying power. In an age of satellites and Google Earth, the map reminds us that the world still holds enigmas no algorithm can solve. It's a tactile relic of human curiosity, a testament to what happens when ingenuity collides with the unknown. Video games like The Forgotten Compass gamify this thrill, letting players step into the boots of scholars racing to decode the map before rival factions destroy it. Meanwhile, podcasts dissect its origins with the fervor of true crime enthusiasts, treating each symbol like a clue in history's coldest case. The map's influence even reshapes how we view other historical mysteries. After its details went viral, searches for ancient anomalies spiked by 400%. Suddenly, fringe theories about Viking sunstones and Antikythera mechanisms found mainstream audiences hungry for the next puzzle. Yet what sets this artifact apart is its refusal to be pigeonholed. It's not just a conspiracy theorist's darling or an academic curio, it's a bridge between worlds. One day it's featured in a somber BBC documentary, the next it's Easter egg in a fantasy RPG, its symbols hidden in a dungeon's mosaic floor. perhaps the map endures because it mirrors our own era's obsessions. In a time of deepfakes and AI-generated art, its blend of authenticity and mystery feels eerily relevant. We're drawn to artifacts that challenge our trust in the historical record, that whisper of gaps in the story we thought we knew. Every documentary frame, every pixelated recreation, every feverish Reddit thread is a testament to the same human impulse that drove the empire's cartographers, the need to make sense of the world, even when it resists explanation. And so the map lives on, not just in archives, but in the stories we tell about it, each retelling adding another layer to its legend. Today, the map that shouldn't exist rests under layers of protection in a climate-controlled vault, its fragile parchment shielded from light, humidity, and even the faintest vibration. Only a handful of scholars with top-level clearance are permitted to study it in person, and even then, under the watchful gaze of armed guards and high-resolution cameras. The irony is palpable. An artifact meant to guide travelers across vast distances is now confined to a single room, its secrets locked away as tightly as the Empire's lost knowledge. Preservation is a race against time. Every time the parchment is exposed to air, microscopic fibers degrade. The ink, once vibrant with lapis lazuli and cinnabar, slowly fades despite the argon gas pumped into its display case. Modern conservators face an impossible dilemma. Study risks damage, but neglect risks losing the map's secrets forever. Their solution, a blend of cutting-edge technology and ancient techniques. Multispectral imaging captures details invisible to the naked eye, while synthetic parchment replicas allow researchers to handle proxies without touching the original. Yet even these measures feel temporary. The map's material defies replication. Its strange, silken texture and unknown binding agent remain as enigmatic as its contents. The real hope lies in what we can't yet see. Scientists are developing non-invasive spectral analysis tools that could one day reveal hidden layers of text or symbols beneath the surface. Imagine peeling back the parchment's history like an onion, each scan uncovering drafts, corrections, or even palimpsests of older maps beneath. There's also the tantalizing possibility of AI-assisted decryption. Algorithms trained on the Empire's surviving texts might finally crack the cipher of those cryptic marginal symbols, transforming squiggles into legible instructions or warnings. But time is the enemy. Each year, the parchment grows more brittle, the ink dimmer. Some symbols have already vanished, their secrets lost to oxidation. The clock isn't just ticking on the map's physical survival, it's counting down our window to understand it. Future breakthroughs in nanotechnology or quantum imaging might reveal answers we can't yet fathom, but only if the map survives long enough to meet them. Perhaps the greatest tension lies in the question of access. Should such a pivotal artifact be hoarded by academia or shared digitally with the world? High-resolution scans exist, but they lack the texture, the subtle impressions of the cartographer's quill that might hold clues. For now, the map remains a paradox, a guide to the world, kept from the very world it was meant to illuminate. And so we wait, balancing preservation against discovery, guarding a treasure whose full value we've yet to comprehend. Recent advancements in imaging technology have peeled back layers of time, revealing ghostly inscriptions on the map's surface that were invisible to the naked eye. Multispectral cameras, originally developed for satellite imaging and medical diagnostics, now capture faint traces of iron gall ink absorbed deep into the parchment fibers, notes so delicate they'd been overlooked for centuries. One such discovery, a series of numerals near the map's eastern edge, corresponds to star positions during a lunar eclipse that occurred in the Empire's final decades. This wasn't just decorative astrology, The alignment suggests the cartographers used celestial events as fixed reference points, triangulating locations with mathematical precision that rivals modern GPS. But the real breakthrough came when researchers at the University of Cambridge applied a novel technique, hyperspectral fluorescence imaging, to the map's most enigmatic symbols. Hidden beneath centuries of oxidation, they uncovered a grid of microdots arranged in complex geometric patterns. At first dismissed as parchment flaws, these dots form a scaled coordinate system when viewed under algorithmic enhancement, allowing distances to be calculated with margin of error under 1%. The implications are staggering. This level of accuracy implies the empire didn't just observe landmarks. They may have developed an early form of geodetic survey, measuring the Earth's curvature centuries before the concept was formally established in Europe. Perhaps most tantalizing are the newly revealed marginalia annotations in a cryptic script that shares characteristics with both the empire's official language and an older, undeciphered writing system. Linguists have isolated 17 unique glyphs reappearing in specific contexts, often near coastal features or trade routes. One recurring symbol, a circle bisected by a wavy line, appears exclusively near regions rich in underwater methane vents. Coincidence or evidence the empire mapped not just surface geography, but subterranean and oceanic phenomena invisible without advanced instrumentation. The pace of discovery is accelerating. Last year, a team from the Getty Conservation Institute developed a non-invasive technique using terahertz radiation to detect compositional variations in the ink. Their scans revealed subtle density changes suggesting the map was revised over time, with certain routes and symbols added or erased as knowledge evolved. This isn't a static document, it's a living record, updated across generations like some medieval Wikipedia. One palimpsest layer even shows traces of a vanished landmass in the Black Sea, its contours matching geologic evidence of a Bronze Age settlement now 30 meters underwater. Yet for every answer, new questions emerge. Why does one cluster of symbols appear only under ultraviolet light, glowing faintly like celestial waypoints? How did the cartographers account for magnetic declination, the variance between magnetic and true north centuries before the phenomenon was understood? And most perplexing of all, why hide these annotations in the first place? The very tools revealing the map's secrets now suggest its creators deliberately encoded information, leaving breadcrumbs for those with the means or the wisdom to follow. As technology peels back the parchment's layers, we're not just recovering lost ink. We're witnessing the resurrection of an entire worldview, one where science and mystery walked hand in hand, where every line held meaning beyond the visible, and where maps weren't just guides, but guardians of knowledge too precious to entrust to the uninitiated. The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes. This map wasn't meant to simply chart the known world. It was designed to reveal it. The question of who gets to see the map and under what conditions has sparked fierce debates that go far beyond academic circles. On one side, preservationists argue that exposing this fragile parchment to light, humidity, or even the oils from human fingertips amounts to cultural vandalism. Every second it spends outside a climate-controlled vault risks irreversible damage, fading symbols that might hold the last whispers of a lost civilization. They point to tragedies like the 2001 Taliban destruction of the Bamiyan Buddhas or the ISIS looting of Mosul's libraries as cautionary tales. What good is public access, they ask, if the artifact itself crumbles to dust? Yet others counter that locking the map away betrays its very purpose. This wasn't meant to be a treasure hoarded by elites, it was a tool, a guide meant to be studied and used. Museums from London to Tokyo report spikes in historical engagement when rare artifacts go on display. The Rosetta Stone, for instance, inspired generations of linguists because it sat in the open where curious minds could press their noses against the glass. Could the map's secrets be hiding in plain sight, waiting for some amateur cartographer or retired sailor to spot a clue professionals missed? The ethical dilemmas multiply when you consider ownership. The empire that created the map has no modern descendants, its borders long swallowed by other nations. Should it reside in Istanbul, nearest to where it was found? Or does it belong to humanity itself, rotating through global exhibitions to share its wonder? Legal battles over artifacts like the Parthenon marbles show how easily these discussions turn political. Some even suggest the map should exist simultaneously in two forms: the original, preserved like a sacred relic, and an interactive digital twin, where anyone can zoom into symbols or simulate ancient voyages with a swipe. Technology offers compromises, but not without controversy. High-resolution scans allow virtual access, yet purists argue pixels can't capture the parchment's texture, the way light plays on ink mixed with lapis lazuli, or the faint indentations left by a cartographer's quill. There's also the risk of exploitation. When 3D replicas of the map began circulating online, conspiracy theorists doctored images to prove alien influences, muddying scholarly discourse. How do we share knowledge without diluting truth? At its core, this debate mirrors a deeper tension in how we treat the past. Some cultures view artifacts as living entities, demanding reverence and ritual. Others see them as data points to be analyzed, even disassembled for study. The map straddles both worlds. It's a scientific marvel inked with sacred symbols. Perhaps the answer isn't choosing between preservation and access, but redefining what preservation means. After all, the empire's scholars didn't hide their work. They passed it down, trusting future generations to carry it forward. Their legacy isn't just parchment and ink. It's the unshakable belief that knowledge, no matter how fragile, belongs to those who dare to seek it. The map that shouldn't exist isn't alone in its defiance of history's tidy timelines. It stands shoulder to shoulder with other Enigma's artifacts so out of place, they've become lodestones for curiosity. Take the Antikythera mechanism, that intricate bronze clockwork salvaged from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. When first discovered, scholars dismissed it as too advanced for its era, until X-rays revealed gears capable of predicting planetary positions with startling accuracy. Like our map, it whispers of knowledge that shouldn't have existed in its time, a mechanical brain crafted centuries before Europe's earliest known clocks. Both artifacts share more than just mystery. They're proof that innovation didn't follow a straight path. Civilizations could leap forward, then collapse, taking their secrets with them. Then there's the Voynich manuscript, that cryptic book filled with unreadable script and bizarre botanical illustrations. Carbon dated to the early 15th century, its pages resist every attempt at decryption, from wartime codebreakers to modern AI. The parallels are striking. Both the Voynich and our map are festooned with symbols that refuse to yield their meaning, as if their creators spoke a language of knowledge we've forgotten. Some speculate the manuscript was an elaborate hoax, just as skeptics once labeled the map a forgery. But like the map's uncanny geography, the Voynich's plant drawings contain details too precise to be random. Some depict species unknown to modern botany. Others show hybrid plants that defy natural classification. They're not just puzzles, they're mirrors, reflecting how much we still don't understand about the past's lost sciences. What truly binds these anomalies isn't just their strangeness, it's the gaps they expose in history's grand narrative. The Baghdad Battery, a clay jar with traces of acidic residue and an iron rod. hints at ancient experiments with electricity. The Saqqara bird, a wooden figurine from Egypt with wings shaped like airfoils, suggests observations of aerodynamics millennia before flight. These aren't mere curiosities, they're fractures in the bedrock of conventional history, evidence that human ingenuity has flickered in unexpected places, often snuffed out by war, disaster, or simple forgetting. The map's kinship with these artifacts raises a tantalizing possibility. What if they're not outliers but survivors, fragments of a much broader tapestry of knowledge that once spanned continents and eras? Consider how the Antikythera mechanisms gears echo celestial calculations described in Babylonian clay tablets, or how the Voynish's herbal pages recall the empire's encrypted botanical manuals. These connections suggest a shadow network of ideas, exchanged along forgotten trade routes or preserved in isolated scriptoria. The map's true significance might not lie in its singular brilliance, but in its place within a hidden lineage, one where knowledge flowed freely, then vanished beneath the sands of time. Yet there's a crucial difference. While the Antikythera mechanism and Voynish manuscript remain locked in their mysteries, the map offers something rare, verifiable truth. Its coastlines and depths can be measured against modern surveys, its accuracy quantified. This isn't speculation, it's a measurable anomaly, a crack in history's facade wide enough to peer through. And that changes everything, because if one impossible artifact can be proven real, how many others might be waiting in archives, overlooked or misunderstood? The map doesn't just challenge our past, it dares us to look anew at every relic gathering dust in museum vaults, whispering that history's story is far from finished. The idea that this map could be a remnant of a vast, interconnected ancient civilization isn't just speculative fantasy, it's a theory gaining traction among historians who have noticed eerie similarities between distant cultures. Think about it, how could the empire's cartographers have charted coastlines they never sailed, or marked mountain passes they never crossed? One compelling explanation is that they weren't working in isolation. They might have been part of a sprawling network of knowledge, a kind of prehistoric internet where ideas flowed along trade routes older than recorded history. Take the pyramid builders of Egypt and Mesoamerica. Separated by an ocean, these cultures constructed strikingly similar stepped pyramids aligned to celestial events without any known contact. Or consider the precise astronomical observations found in Babylonian clay tablets and Mayan codices, both calculating planetary cycles with near-identical accuracy. These parallels aren't just coincidences, they're fingerprints of something bigger. The map's uncanny details fit neatly into this puzzle. Its depictions of far-flung regions, some labeled with names matching oral traditions from indigenous cultures halfway across the world, hint at shared geographic lore. A river delta in West Africa, for instance, bears a symbol identical to petroglyphs found in Australian Aboriginal rock art, both representing a legendary water serpent constellation. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Linguists studying the map's marginalia have identified glyphs resembling Proto-Indo-European root words, alongside symbols that mirror ancient Chinese seal script. This isn't just a hodgepodge of influences, it's a potential Rosetta Stone of lost connections. Could the map be a relic from an age when mariners, scholars, and explorers exchanged ideas across continents? Maritime archaeologists point to evidence of transoceanic travel long before the age of Columbus. Roman coins found in Okinawa, South American sweet potatoes thriving in Polynesia, even traces of nicotine in Egyptian mummies, a plant native only to the Americas. The map might be the missing link in this chain of global exchange. Not everyone's convinced, of course. Skeptics argue that humans are pattern-seeking creatures, prone to seeing connections where none exist. They point to the independent invention theory, the idea that similar innovations can arise spontaneously in separate cultures facing comparable challenges. Pyramids, after all, are structurally stable shapes for monumental buildings. Accurate star charts are vital for agriculture anywhere on Earth, but this doesn't explain the map's specific anomalies. Why would two unconnected civilizations both choose to mark the same obscure whirlpool in the Indian Ocean with a spiral symbol, or record the exact same celestial event as a navigation marker? The odds strain belief. The most tantalizing clue might lie in the map's material itself. Recent isotopic analysis of its ink revealed traces of a rare mineral found only in meteorites, a substance also detected in ceremonial artifacts from the Indus Valley and ancient Mesopotamia. This isn't just a shared aesthetic, it's a shared recipe, suggesting a transfer of technical knowledge across unimaginable distances. Add to this the parchment's unusual fibers, which match samples from prehistoric Scandinavian bog textiles and Egyptian burial shrouds, and a picture emerges of a world far more interconnected than we ever imagined. So was there a global civilization, not in the sense of a single empire ruling the ancient world, but perhaps something subtler, a web of trade, diplomacy, and scholarly exchange that spanned continents, its threads frayed by time, war, and natural disasters. The map could be one of the last surviving knots in that web, a silent witness to an era when knowledge flowed as freely as the tides. And if that's true, its true significance isn't just in what it shows, but in what it represents, a forgotten chapter of human collaboration, written in ink and memory, waiting to be read anew. The map that shouldn't exist remains one of history's most tantalizing riddles, a parchment that refuses to fit neatly into the story we tell about our past. Whether it's evidence of a scientific tradition lost to time, a glimpse of knowledge passed down from an even older civilization, or something that defies explanation entirely, its very existence forces us to question the boundaries of human ingenuity. This isn't just about cartography, it's about the fragile nature of knowledge itself. How many other breakthroughs, how many other leaps of understanding have vanished into the shadows of history without leaving a trace? What makes this mystery so compelling isn't just the map's impossible precision, it's the way it humbles us. For centuries, we've assumed that progress moves in a straight line, that each generation builds on the last in a steady march toward greater understanding. But artifacts like this whisper a different truth, that history is full of detours and dead ends, of brilliance that flickered brightly before being snuffed out by war, disaster, or simple forgetfulness. The map is a reminder that there are gaps in our knowledge wide enough to sail a fleet through, and that the past might hold secrets we've barely begun to imagine. And yet, there's hope in that uncertainty. Every new scan, every breakthrough in imaging technology, peels back another layer of the map's secrets. The scholars studying it today aren't just solving a puzzle. They're part of a tradition that stretches back to the empire's own cartographers, a chain of curiosity spanning centuries. Whether we ever fully decipher its symbols or not, the map has already given us something priceless, proof that the world is stranger, richer, and more mysterious than our textbooks ever suggested. So what do you think? Is the map a relic of advanced science, a fragment of lost wisdom, or something else entirely? The answer might lie in the comments below, where theories collide and new ideas take shape. After all, history isn't just something we study, it's something we create together, one discovery at a time. Don't forget to subscribe and join us as we keep unraveling the past's greatest enigmas. Who knows, the next breakthrough might come from